Welcome to No Way Out, a place where stories unfold slowly, methodically, like twilight stretching over a quiet landscape. Here, we journey into discomfort, not to stir panic, but to gently remind your mind how far it's come to lead you towards sleep. We offer tales where the only escape is rest. Tonight's story begins with the soft crunch of twigs beneath your feet, the quiet rustle of unseen trees swaying in the wind, and the realization that you've taken one step too far into the unknown. This is a world where direction has no meaning, where you are surrounded by nature, but severed from certainty. No maps, no signal, no voices, just the cold breath of the forest and your own heartbeat. Let's begin. You're standing on a forest trail, though it barely resembles one anymore. It's narrow, overgrown, it seems to vanish just 20 paces ahead. You've wandered off, perhaps chasing a view, or maybe just misreading a fork in the path. Either way, the trail behind you looks no more promising than the one ahead. The trees surround you like silent watchers, pines so tall you can't see their tops, bark dark with rain. Everything feels still, but not quiet, because the forest is alive. A subtle rustle here, a sudden call in the distance, the faint sound of something dripping. Your phone is dead, the screen's black. The battery gave up hours ago, and you can't remember the last place you saw a marker. Maybe that mossy rock, or was it a fallen log shaped like a bow? You try to remember your route, but the forest plays tricks. Every tree looks like the last. The canopy hides the sun, diffusing the light until even shadows become untrustworthy. The air is heavy, wet, not quite rain, teed, but something between mist and memory. You walk, one foot in front of the other, slowly because your boots are soaked. The cold has seeped in, not just into your socks, but into your bones. Your jacket, so good at repelling water just hours ago, now clings to you like chilled skin. You stop to listen, but all you hear is your breath, shaky, shallow. Then a bird call, and something moving in the underbrush close, then gone. Probably nothing, but maybe not. You check your pockets. No compass, no map, just a crushed protein bar wrapper and a multi-tool. No signal. You hold your phone above your head, as if elevation might conjure a miracle. But there's only one bar, and even that's flickering like a mirage. The forest becomes a maze, not because it shifts, but because your certainty does. The path slants downward. You follow it, reasoning that water always flows down, and maybe there's a stream. Maybe it leads somewhere. Downhill also means dampness, unstable footing, and roots that coil like traps. In the sky, what little of it you can see begins to darken. The light thins. Your depth perception shifts. That rock, it's not 2 feet away, it's 10. Your brain plays with space. It stretches and folds the landscape like a dream where nothing stays put. You pass a tree you've definitely seen before, or have you? The realization lands like a weight. You're walking in circles. The forest has no walls, but still, you're trapped. The hunger arrives slowly. First, just a thought, then a gnaw, then a hollow feeling that wraps around your ribs. You tell yourself, it's fine. You've gone longer without food. You'll ration, you'll wait. The cold steals your calories faster than you can make them up. You sit, just for a moment, just to rest. Your legs are trembling not from fear, but from fatigue. You didn't realize how long you've been walking, or how uneven the ground was. Every step taxed your balance. Every slope challenged your ankles, and your muscles are shouting now, not whispering. Your breath fogs. The air smells like moss, iron, rich earth, and something older. A scent you can't place. Not rot, exactly. Not mildew, just the smell of time. The kind of scent that only exists where humans rarely tread. You look around, no trails, no signs, no waypoints, just shadows. You remember what someone once said, Moss grows on the north side of trees, but now that you're here, every side has moss, or none of them do. You're not just lost, you're unmoored. And night is coming. Let's shift now gently, slowly into another forest. Not imagined, but remembered. The kind of memory etched deep, not in sharp pain, but in long, cold silence. He was an experienced hiker. Not a novice, not someone who stumbled out unprepared. His name, let's call him Thomas, had appeared in park logs before. He knew how to pack light, move efficiently, and trust his instincts. He'd walked this same stretch of trail 3 times over the years. It's familiar, safe, but familiarity is not immunity. It was early spring when he set out, one of those days where the sun promises warmth. It never fully delivers. The ground thawing, but not dry. Patches of old snow clinging to the shaded hills. His gear was solid. Layers, rations, emergency radio, flint, steel, thermal blanket. He had a plan. He always had a plan. And then it changed. A fallen tree, thick with lichen and fractured at the base, had blocked part of the trail. Nothing impassable, just enough to reroute just a little. A detour through softer ground under a low canopy, where the trail markers had been stripped away by winter winds or never posted to begin with. He didn't notice right away that he'd veered too far. The terrain was subtle, the slope gradual, the trees almost identical. And so he walked for hours. Then came the fog. It slid in like a curtain, not sudden, but total. The world around him dimmed, softened, blurred. Landmarks vanished. His GPS flickered, then died. No reception this deep in the wild. The backup battery left behind. A minor oversight. One he hadn't made before. Still, he remained calm, collected. He'd trained for discomfort. He had his compass. But then something else changed. The compass needle spun. Not fast, not violently, but enough to make north feel like fiction. Perhaps interference, mineral-rich rock, or magnetic drift. He wasn't sure. But whatever it was, it unsettled him. He checked the sun's position, but the fog muted even that. He was now officially uncertain. He set up a temporary shelter. Nothing elaborate. Just a lean-to against a rock face where he lit a small fire using pine needles and dry barks scraped from beneath a log. The warmth helped, but didn't restore confidence. His map water-resistant, but creased and aging off with little clarity. He wasn't where he thought he was. Night crept in. And with it, the sounds. Not dangerous sounds, just unfamiliar ones. The creaking groan of tall trees. The soft crack of something walking far off, likely deer. A whisper of wind through tall grasses. But each sound felt amplified, given weight by isolation. Every branch that snapped could have been a warning. Every silence, a dare. Thomas wrapped himself in his thermal blanket, lay flat, and watched fog dance in the air. His breath rose in ghostly puffs. His mind began to disassemble time. How long had it been since he last drank water? Since he ate? Since he last knew where he was? Sleep came, but it was fragmented. It's not rest, more like stasis. When morning arrived, nothing had changed. The fog held his grip. Even daylight felt indifferent. He packed what little he'd unpacked, left markings on the trees in case he looped back and began to move. But the body responds to uncertainty. His pace slowed, his stomach protested. Muscles ached from poor sleep and cold ground. What should have been a 3-hour loop had now become a guessing game with high stakes. The forest had gone from friend to puzzle to judge. He chose a direction due west, by memory, by instinct, followed it. Hours passed. The sun stayed hidden. His legs weakened. Twice he slipped, once landing hard on his elbow. Nothing broken, but pain layered atop fatigue. At last, a sound. Not of birds, not of wind, but something human. The distant, low churn of an engine, not constant, but present. He followed it, cautiously. It grew louder. Eventually, a trail appeared. A real one, flattened, marked with boot prints, a recent ATV track. Relief arrived, not like a wave but like stillness. He emerged near a maintenance cabin, empty, but unlocked. Inside, he found dry shelter, emergency supplies, and a working radio. Thomas would later call it a cautious miracle. He was dehydrated, lightheaded, shaken but alive. And what he learned stayed with him. That the wild doesn't need to roar to be dangerous. That the loss of orientation can feel like the slow unraveling of one's sense of self. That comfort is fragile and must be earned. He also learned that confidence is not a compass. That experience doesn't guarantee immunity, and that survival is not a singular moment, but a collection of choices made calmly in moments of fear. And now, let's explore why this happens. Why even the most prepared among us can become lost. We'll journey into the curious science of disorientation, the psychology of wandering, and tales of those who disappeared chasing direction itself. Now, let us step quietly not into the forest, but into the folds of the mind itself. Imagine you're walking a flat, open space. No trees, no mountains, no rivers, just horizon. You take 20 steps forward, then 20 back. You should return to where you started, but you don't. You're a few feet off. Try it again. You're off again. The misalignment increases. It builds. Even in the absence of obstacles, we drift. This is not failure. It is biology. Human beings are exquisitely flawed navigators. At our core, we rely on path integration assistance within the brain that tracks direction and distance based on our movement. But this system fades without visual landmarks. Our internal compass goes fuzzy. The brain doesn't truly track where we are. It merely guesses based on where we think we've been. And over time, the guesses unravel. Studies have shown that blindfolded people walking in a straight line will, without exception, begin to walk in circles. Sometimes small circles, sometimes vast, slow curves, but never straight, not for long. The more confident a person is in their orientation, the more unaware they often are of just how lost they've become. In the wilderness, foggy, unfamiliar, echoing the brain's searches for reference points. When there are none, it invents them. Trick of light, a recurring tree, a misplaced rock that becomes a marker. But these are illusions of certainty. We walk towards a mirage of meaning. It is here, in this slow erosion of orientation, that the call of the void often whispers. Also known as l'appel du vide. It's that strange urge you feel when standing near the edge of a cliff to jump. Not because you want to fall, but because your brain, for a fleeting second, entertains what is possible, not what is safe. This same compulsion has shown up in wilderness tales. Hikers convinced they must go downhill, even when downhill leads them further from civilization. Climbers who follow ravines into impossible terrain, trusting the terrain over their own tools. People who, gripped by a subtle panic, abandon their gear thinking lightness equals speed, and speed equals salvation. But panic is not the only adversary. There are other, quieter enemies. Fatigue, hunger, temperature. Each acts on the brain like a sedative, softening logic. Distorting time, warping perception. A person can believe they've traveled miles when they've barely moved a few hundred feet. Others may walk in the same circle for hours, mistaking the same patch of moss for a dozen different landmarks. And then there are the stranger cases. In 1930, a group of experienced hunters in Canada's boreal wilderness vanished. Their campsite was found undisturbed, supplies untouched. No signs of struggle or animal intrusion, just gone. Some speculated a river accident. Others suspected foul play. But the most plausible explanation was also the most mundane. They followed a false trail into the interior, and slowly, over time, became too disoriented to retrace their steps. In the Australian outback, it's common to hear of people who become lost within just a few kilometers of their parked vehicle. Even with GPS access, they trust their instincts. Their instincts betray them. The disquiet lies not in the wilderness itself, but in the realization that the mind is capable of confidently steering you wrong. Neurologically, this often traces back to the hippocampus, the seahorse-shaped structure in your brain responsible for memory and spatial awareness. Sleep deprivation, stress, and dehydration shrink its function. When that part of the brain dulls, maps unravel. The compass bends. You are no longer traveling. You are floating. And if you've ever wondered why the woods seem so much more ominous at night, science offers another whisper of explanation. Without visual stimuli, our auditory processing amplifies. Every twig snap is louder. Every gust of wind carries weight. Its hypervigilance, paired with the loss of direction, creates a psychological phenomenon known as environmental threat magnification. In simpler terms, the less we understand what's around us, the more we fear it. Even your own heartbeat can feel intrusive. The pulse in your ears, the shift of your pack, the rustle of your coat. You are both the seeker and the source of noise. It becomes disorienting. Still, amid all of this, there are those who survive. Some because of skill, others because of luck, many because they paused, sat still, waited, conserved, and when morning came, they were able to orient themselves by sound, by light, by chance, not because their brains sharpened, but because their stillness gave the world a chance to align again. So the next time you consider venturing into the unknown, think of this not as a tale of caution, but a meditation on humility. Even now, in an age of satellites and digital mapping, the most complex terrain you will ever navigate is your own mind. Now, imagine a different version of you. This one does not panic at the rustle of trees. This one doesn't spin in place, gasping for signal or help. This version moves with calm intention, placing each foot with the knowledge that survival is not just a possibility, it's a practiced skill. If you could train for this, you'd begin with stillness. No frantic pacing, no shouting into the void. You'd sit back straight, eyes soft listening. The forest would no longer be a threat, but a map written in subtle languages. Birdsong, shifting direction. The rustle of squirrels to your left. The way cool air slips through one side of a ravine more than the other. These are all indicators of direction, of water. 5. You reach into your memory, not your pocket. You know how to build fire not with a lighter, but with the friction of cedar against cedar, coaxing smoke from dust. It takes patience, but you have it. You've practiced this, not in theory, but under the weight of dusk. You gather what others would ignore. Pine sap, dry moss, a small shard of quartz to strike. You work slowly. The crackle of flame becomes your evening song. Shelter is not a tent, but a shape you understand. A lean-to of bowed branches, insulated with leaves, pine needles, and earth. The cold can be managed. You know to never sleep directly on the ground. It drains heat like water from a cracked bowl. So you build a bed of dry foliage, a cushion of survival. Food is not convenience, it is caution. You walk the land with a forager's eye. You recognize the sharp edge of cattails, the peppery bite of wild mustard, the soft chew of violet leaves. You test, you watch, you wait. You know what plants to avoid, not because of folklore, but because you've studied the alkaloids, the telltale bitterness, the structure of leaves and stems. Your body burns calories differently out here. You eat what's necessary. You chew slowly. You conserve. Water is never taken for granted. You do not drink from streams without thought. You look for movement, faster water, clearer signs. You use charcoal, sand, cloth layered, and slow to filter. You boil, dehydration dulls thought before it dries the tongue. As night falls again, you light a second fire. Not large, not wild, just enough. The stars are your map now. Orion's belt points west. That moss, while not foolproof, gathers more thickly on the northern side of trees in these latitudes. To trust shadows. When to stay and when to move. Your sleep is not easy, but it is earned. Even with every skill, every advantage of training, you remain humble, because wilderness is not conquered, it is respected. The next morning, you hear it, hum, low, faint, a road, civilization, your path back, and yet you don't rush. You take one last drink from your filtered water. You pack your gear carefully. You stamp out the fire. You scatter your presence like wind-blown ash. You leave no trace. And you walk, not as someone who survived, but as someone who knew how. And now, perhaps, as your mind begins to settle, you realize this entire journey through confusion, panic, insight, and skill has slowly brought you back. Not to a trail, not to a road, but to the present, to your pillow, to your breath, to this moment. You're not lost, you're simply still. In a world that spins and shouts and pushes, stillness is a kind of survival. And sleep is the truest form of surrender. So let the leaves rustle far away. Let the flame burn low. Let your mind rest in the comfort that you are warm, safe, and home. Tomorrow, the wilderness will still be there, but tonight you are free to drift.